All right, let's jump right in. If you're getting ready to teach literature, you know that you're not just walking into a room of students, you're walking into a room full of completely individual readers. So today, we're going to break down a really fantastic strategy for teaching big, complex ideas using sci-fi and fantasy, no matter what kind of reading levels you've got in your classroom.
So, let's talk about a challenge every single literature teacher faces. You've got this one unit, this one big idea you really want to dig into, but your students, they are all over the map when it comes to their reading skills and what they're into. So, what do you do?
I mean, really think about it. How in the world do you have a rich, class-wide conversation about, say, government control, when one student is totally ready for George Orwell's 1984, but another student needs something more accessible, like Lois Flowery's The Giver? It's a puzzle you have to solve pretty much every day.
Well, the answer is this really cool concept called a reading ladder. You can see it right here. Instead of trying to force every student to jump to the exact same rung, you build this ladder. It allows every single kid to start climbing from where they are, all while exploring the exact same big questions.
Okay, so before we start building these ladders ourselves, let's just take a step back and talk about the educational philosophy that makes them work so well. We've got to understand the why before we can really master the how. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head, right? You can have a room with 35 kids in it, but learning doesn't happen to the group. It happens inside each individual person's head. Our job as teachers is to make that individual process work for everyone, not just for some imaginary student in the middle.
And that's the thing you really have to get. Differentiated instruction, it's not a binder of worksheets or a bag of tricks. It's a mindset. It's a deep-down commitment to tweaking what you're doing to meet students where they are so that every single one of them has a real shot at learning and growing.
This framework is awesome because it boils that huge idea down to 3 pretty simple questions. What are you going to change? How are you going to respond to your students? And why are you doing it? This is basically your map for making smart, intentional choices in your lesson planning.
So let's just unpack that for a second. You can change up the content, that's the books themselves. You can switch up the process, that's how students actually grapple with the ideas. And you can offer options for the product, how they show you what they've learned. And you make all these choices based on their readiness, what they're actually interested in, and how they learn best. Our reading ladder, that's a perfect example of changing the content based on student readiness.
Okay, theories down. So, why science fiction and fantasy? Why are these genres such a perfect playground for this kind of teaching?
It's because, at their heart, these genres are all about one giant question. What if? What if the government controlled every single choice we make? What if we could bring back dinosaurs? They take these huge ethical questions and put them in a world that's just a little removed from our own, which gives students a safe space to think about them critically.
So when you're picking out books, what makes for good fantasy? Well, a few things. First, it has to make the impossible feel totally possible. The magic can't be random. It needs to have clear, consistent rules. And probably most important, the world, no matter how wild it is, has to connect back to something true about our own world.
Now, sci-fi, it works a little differently. It's usually based on science and tech that we already have, and it just asks, okay, where could this go? The really good stuff gives us complex characters and believable stories that explore these timeless human questions, which makes it feel super relevant.
All right, enough theory. Let's get super practical. We're going to take that idea of differentiation and the power of sci-fi and mash them together into an incredible tool you can literally use your first week of teaching. So here it is. A reading ladder isn't just some random book list, okay? It's a set of books that you've carefully chosen, all connected by one big theme, but they're laid out in order of difficulty. This is differentiation in action.
And check this out. This is what it looks like in practice. It's so clear here. On that ladder on the left, one kid can be reading The Giver, another can be tackling The Hunger Games, and someone else can dive into Fahrenheit 451. They're all reading different books, but every one of them is exploring the exact same theme of government control.
And that, right there, that's the magic trick. This is the whole point. Every single student, no matter which book is in their hands, has a way into the big, important, class-wide conversation. You've just created a classroom where everyone truly belongs to the intellectual community.
But look, handing out different books, that's only half the battle. Now what? How do we help them actually process these huge ideas and learn how to build a strong, convincing argument?
For that, we've got another amazing tool,
It's called a discussion web. Now, it looks pretty simple, but it's an incredibly powerful graphic organizer. It gives students a structure for their thinking and actually forces them to look at a complicated question from both sides before they're allowed to make up their mind.
The real genius of this thing is how it's structured. It's all about collaboration. See, students start out on their own, digging for yes and no reasons in their own book. Then they team up with a partner to share. Then those pairs team up to make a group of 4. This gradual process builds their confidence and their understanding step by step until they're finally ready to write a solid conclusion. And here's what you get at the end. Look at that. This is so much more than just, well, I think. Look at the specific points under yes and no. Those are actual arguments that students can back up with evidence from what they read. And the final conclusion isn't some simple answer. It's a thoughtful, nuanced idea that they built by looking at all sides.
Because at the end of the day, that's our job, isn't it? We're not just teaching books, we're teaching kids how to think. We're giving them the tools to have smart, respectful, evidence-based conversations, and that's a skill they are going to need for their entire lives.
So you see, when you put it all together, that differentiated mindset and these practical tools like reading ladders and discussion webs, you're doing so much more than just teaching a novel. You are opening up a world of critical thinking for every single kid in your room. So the only question left for you is, what big what if are you going to tackle with them first?